Restore, an NGO based in Cape Town that provides inmates at Pollsmoor Prison with restorative justice opportunities, has launched Prison Journalism Program. Now, this program mentors former inmates to tell their life stories after prison. Restore was started in Cape Town, South Africa, and we've got with us one of the founders, Lisa Marqua-Harries and Lindsey Pettit-Lee, in 2012 to deliver restorative justice courses for young offenders in Cape Town's Pollsmoor Prison. Well, to tell us more about the program, we've got Lisa with us, Restore's co-founder, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about this. Lisa, it's such a pleasure having you, and what an interesting program that you've got going here. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be joining you here and sharing more about the work.
So tell us the beginning. Go right back to the beginning when it all started and how it was all conceived.
So I initially started volunteering in prison way back in 2005. And at that point, the Child Justice Act had not been passed in Parliament. They were still debating it. And when I stepped into Pollsmoor Prison, there were over 200 14 to 18-year-old young children awaiting trial. And that's really how it started for me, was just working with the young children, and then that led into working with the youth. So it's been nearly 18 years now of since that first step into the cells in Pollsmoor, and just seeing the need, beginning to hear the stories and recognizing that there's a lot of trauma and violence that many of these children are exposed to growing up in some of these high violence communities, and so really wanting to look at alternatives and ways of just making a difference.
Yeah, and
where we can.
As you say, I mean, there is, when you see young children and the youth in prison, you know that there is a big story behind this, and it's trying to pull the story out of these inmates and trying to understand what actually leads to them committing crimes. So, I mean, was that basically the idea? Is to try and get people to tell their story so we understand them better?
Yeah, so what exactly? I mean, what we recognize is that through trauma, empathy and many things are shut down. And it's actually very hard for people to tell their story and articulate. And so part of our heart is to create safe spaces through the programs that we run. It's a tricky dynamic, because you're obviously going into a system that there's still many challenges within the system that we work. So, but we're wanting to create safe spaces, and through restorative justice, awaken empathy, if you could say that. And then we help give tools to equip for storytelling, and just allowing them to. We use tools like the River of Life. We use theatre. We use artwork. We use therapeutic tools to really try and engage with young people in helping them tell their story and helping them articulate. And I think I'm sure you're going to get there, but the journalism project just flows so beautifully from that as well.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at right now. So, I mean, we talk about this journalism program. What does the actual training entail? Do you go into the prisons and work with the inmates? And let me not put the ideas in your head. You tell me, how does that work?
So we were contacted earlier this year by the SouthAfrican.com, and their vision and their heart is to equip those inside prison and the formerly incarcerated in storytelling and in writing about their experiences inside prison. And so, allowing people to really step into a world and a space that we so often don't step into, and we hear stories, on the outside, or we may get the odd news report or whatever. But this is really it's from their experience, and so we were approached by them. They've been doing work connecting in the US. Their partnership started with a lifer called Jeffrey Shockley, and he's been writing for them. And what I think is so phenomenal is that he the reason the South African reached out to our NGO here in South Africa was Jeffrey said the money he's earning, the remuneration he's getting from the project or from the program is he would like to donate it to an NGO in South Africa working with those incarcerated. And so what he earns is actually coming to our NGO, and he's giving back in that sense.
That's amazing.
But the discussion then carried on, and we then said, well, let's try and implement it here. Implementing it inside prison, I think there may be some more hurdles we need to overcome. So we decided to start it with our formerly incarcerated young men that are part of our reintegration program. And it just fits so perfectly because we've been working with them for nearly 3 years on what we call participatory action research, where we're trying to empower and equip them to be storytellers in their communities. And so this project, this program, just fitted so beautifully into that narrative. And so the South African has been partnering with us. We have young men on board that have been writing for them. It's being published. They're being paid for it. And we've been running workshops as well to try and equip them in their writing skills. So we're upskilling them. So it's a very exciting
it really
project.
Is. I mean, Lisa, this is just absolutely fantastic when you sort of think about how, you are assisting with really listening to stories. And I mean, we know that South Africa it's a country riddled with trauma. I mean, intergenerational trauma, collective trauma, continuous trauma. We sort of, I imagine, see a thread coming through all of the stories that you're hearing. But how do you build up community and relationships to provide a support base and also tackle the root cause of the offense? Because it's well and good we get to hear and read these stories and they get paid to write their stories. But at the end of the day, how do we stop this? Because it seems to be getting more and more out of control, and it's a huge problem.
So, I mean, it's a question we wrestle with daily. I really believe restorative justice as an alternative is one answer. It's not the only answer. But it does need to be seen as an approach, not just a nice little program that we tag on to prisons or to diversion or, in some of the areas is being used in courts, etc. That's wonderful that it is, it's in our white papers, it's in policy. South Africa, because of the sort of TRC, storytelling impact that provided, it's sort of it's part of our narrative here in South Africa. But it really needs to be taken seriously, I think, on all levels. I noticed that in a recent article in a Daily Maverick that the DEA had spoken about restorative justice as one of the solutions. That was a week or so ago. But it does, I'm not saying it's the only answer. One needs to sort of target all levels. I feel like restorative justice seen as an approach and a philosophy, more than just a nice little program we tag on and say, okay, let's measure results, let's see if there's results. It really needs to be taken seriously on all levels. And it's a different way of thinking about crime.
Lisa,
so instead of, so I could carry on and talk all day about it.
And so could I, but I need you to give me an example of perhaps, the kind of stories we're hearing about and they're writing about. And I'm giving you like 30 seconds. Perhaps you can pick one or something that you find that's common that these guys are talking about.
I think trauma is we're hearing from the young men how they're growing up, how they're being abandoned in communities. So they don't grow up with either a strong thread and theme is a loving father role model, or there's often like an abusive stepfather, or they've been abandoned and neglected and somehow ended up in the system. And I think that's a common thread we need to look at. Early childhood development, if we have to go all the way back, is I think key and critical. And we are, I think, pouring resources into that as South Africa, but we need to focus more on that as well.
Lisa, fantastic story. It really is what you're doing, but that is a big problem that we're dealing with here in South Africa, and I'm glad that you're allowing these inmates to share their stories. Lisa Marqua-Harries, Restore's co-founder, who is speaking about this prison journalism program, allowing inmates to tell their stories through journalism and to sort of recount how they landed up there and what the circumstances are. So a fantastic program. Restore. Have a look at it and you'll find more information about it.